our most formative years are childhood. That is the most significant part of growing into who we're going to become, because of all of the experiences that we have are pretty much shaping not only our character, but our beliefs about ourselves, our beliefs about the world, our beliefs about other people, our beliefs about relationships, because we don't know any different. So we base everything off of these experiences we have. So Dana, by the time you were a teenager, you already found yourself addicted to drugs.
I did. Yep. It happened early for me.
So before we really dive into that, what was it like to be little Dana?
So in my household, I had my mom and my dad until about 4 years old. And then my dad would come in and out until about 8 years old because my
What do you mean in and
parents,
out? Like, what was he doing?
they were divorced, but they would make up and then he'd be living with us for a while. And then, they would get in another fight and it was very physical all the time. They were in their 20s, pretty young. And my dad would be physically violent and my mom would be an antagonizer and they would just go at each other. And I would often never, like, I remember some memories as a child being like, please stop fighting, stop fighting. I was always the peacemaker in the family from a very young age. I just wanted everyone to be happy and get along. And they would stop, but then the next day I would wake up and the cops would be at my house. And my dad had, for this particular time, it was the last time. I was in third grade, so maybe 8ish. And I woke up, the cops were at my house. I was ready to go to school. And my mom was like, sweetie, go back to bed. I'll take you to school later. And then later, she explained to me my dad on her way to work had sprained both her wrists and he poured her hot coffee on her and she never made it to work. Obviously, she called the police. He was arrested. And that was kind of a lot of my childhood of them together. So he was constantly in and out of like jail for domestic things. And it was usually with her. So
Was that the last time you saw him, or did you carry on a relationship with him?
No, I saw him still. We had supervised visitation. So we would have like visitation on weekends. It was only supervised for a little bit and then he got like his rights back and then we'd have still our visitations on weekends. It wasn't your typical like, spend half your time at dad's house or anything like that, obviously, but we would have weekends with him and I have a very close relationship with him now. I have the understanding he was also on drugs. He had an Adderall problem, a Xanax problem. He's very big. He's like 6'3" or 4 and a bigger guy. He was doing stuff for the Lions at one point, so he was taking steroids at one point. And it was just like a big toxic concoction of medication that kind of pushed him to those limits.
Did he get treatment for that?
I think jail was his treatment. He ended up doing a year in Oakland County Jail for, actually it was for child support, for not paying child support. And I think that's what initially being that, so like the sobriety lasting a year long, he was able to get out and not pick back up. But after that, he really got his life together. He ended up having to move out of Michigan because he had such an extensive criminal background. But he is actually the one who has his shit together these days out of my parents. So he's like the main provider. Well, he was like financially for us, and he's like moved his way on up in the world. And he's like the director of supply chain management for his company now. And doing great things. So
you were raised by a single mom, essentially.
I was. So then I was raised by my single mom. And
you have siblings?
I do. I have three sisters. So, my oldest sister, Chrissy, we have like a 7-year difference. And then I have another older sister who were just 2 years apart. And then my younger sister were 2 years apart.
Mhm.
So, my oldest sister, she was more of like the authority figure, but she was also working. So, she was never really home. It was me and my siblings, and they did like after school activities. Well, my older sister did, so she would be at like cheer. So basically, it was like me and my younger sister just like hanging out, and I ended up meeting in 6th grade. So a few years after my dad had moved out, I ended up
Mhm.
meeting my long-term boyfriend, who we ended up getting in a lot of trouble with.
Like what kind of trouble? In 6th grade?
In 6th grade, and he's actually now my husband.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
But so in 6th grade, I met someone similar to my dad. He was
Of
just
course.
like all over the place, like the bad kid at school.
Mhm.
He had a problem with authority, and he I don't know, just wasn't good with school stuff. He didn't like authority. He didn't like being told what to do, and he's the youngest of 8 in his family. So he also um had some issues that made him act out towards authority at school. So, anyways, I met him in 6th grade, and I would say in 7th grade, maybe even 6th, we started smoking pot.
Mhm.
And that's really young. Like now I have 2 kids, and I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like what I
Baby.
would do as a parent in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. But I'm guessing your mom, being a single mom, was working all the time. So did she even know what was going on?
She was working, but at the same time, she was very lenient. She didn't want to put this like structure, like she didn't want to close us off because she was very structured as a child, and she thought that made her rebel. So she kind of tried to do the opposite and give you like
Mhm.
your free will and let you do what you want and think that that would work. But looking back, I'd have to say I would not do that same parenting style for my kids at all.
No. So do you find yourself trying to be, so your mom was trying to be opposite of what she grew up with? Are
Yeah.
you trying to do opposite, or are you just trying to be conscious?
I'm
Oh,
just, honestly, I think the best thing you can do is be there for your kids. And I'm fortunate enough to be now a stay-at-home mom, so I'm able to pick my kids
mhm.
up to school and have like full visibility on what they're doing throughout the day. And so like I'm not overprotective, but I also like to, like when they go to their friends, they're still so young. Like I don't love play dates because I don't trust so many parents these days. Like it's hard to know who you're sending your kids to. But
Mhm.
anyway, they have little watches so we can call and text and stuff through there. Like I'm definitely more hands-on than my mom, but at the same time, like I try to give them their freedom to have those play dates to like, and just keep an eye on everything.
Yeah. So when you started smoking pot, you were pretty young,
Yeah,
and
and my mom wasn't against it. She wasn't against
she knew
it.
about it.
She bought pot from my boyfriend at 16. So it was a few years past that,
Oh,
but she bought pot from my boyfriend at 16. And at that time he was fighting with his parents again. And we were already, so let me backtrack a little bit.
mhm.
We started smoking pot, and then around 8th grade we met someone who like lived down my street. He went to school with us, and he was like, hey, let's go smoke at my friend's house. So we go to his friend's house, and we start smoking with this guy, but he's like literally 20 or something. He's a lot older than us. So we start smoking with this guy and going there occasionally for like rolling up and smoking. And then about a year passes, and we're at this guy's house. I'm now in like 9th grade. And we're at this guy's house, and he's like, hey, I just like crushed up this Xanax or something. Do you guys want to come take a line? And we're like, me and Phil like exchange glances, and we're like, should we be doing this? Like, So what went through my head at the time was they were really drilling like the DARE project and like against drugs, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't really go into depth, just that drugs are addictive. Stay away from drugs, especially weed. Like weed was the most common at the time that I was in school. It wasn't like the epidemic today with heroin, but it was weed at the time, and they were like, don't smoke weed. And we had been smoking weed forever. So I'm like, they say it's addictive, but like we smoke weed all the time and we're fine. So whatever, let's try it. So we go and try it. And we're like, holy shit, like we're super high and whatever. We go back like a week later to smoke with him again. And it's the same routine. He's like, you want to, take another line or whatever. We're like, sure. Like, and then it became a thing to where he was like, hey, one day I have my license. So he's like, hey, could you guys give me a ride somewhere? I just needed to pick something up, pick up some drugs or something, and I'll give you a line. And we're like, all right, sure, no problem. And it all kind of spiraled so fast. Like looking back, sure, it might have been a week or like a few days apart for these things. But then it became like pretty regularly we were giving him these rides and he was trading us like, a line or whatever. And then one day or like a couple days go by that we don't give him rides. And we were just like in ninth grade, found ourselves super sick. We were like, oh my God, what's happening? We really had no idea what was happening, but we were both going through it. So then we start like looking into it and we're like, I think we're withdrawing. And that's kind of what started everything.
So what was that like? What do you mean you were sick? Throwing up?
We were, throwing up, had the chills, just like antsiness, couldn't stay still, but we're so tired and like exhausted. And so it became like, obviously a regular thing. After that, we're like, holy shit, like I think we need to like get some more of that or something. Like at that age, I don't think we were equipped to know what to do and how to deal with what we were going through. And it just like happened so fast. They didn't teach you like, and we later found out that it wasn't Xanax, it was heroin. And
the whole time you had been doing heroin?
Yep. And so we later found out that we were doing heroin, and then another spiral after that happened, and it was just so crazy and intense.
Did either one of your parents know what was going on?
Not at that point.
Okay.
So at that point it was still kind of new. Like I said, it kind of happened really fast, even though it was like, a couple days. But it ended up being like a long, 16, like 6 years of being of addiction. So after that,
so you were getting sick, you realized you were withdrawing, you found out it was heroin, and then you were like, what, I need to get more?
We called the guy and we were like, hey, like something's happening, like what is happening? And we feel like this, like, and he's like, oh, it sounds like you're withdrawing. Like, I have some more, I think is what kind of how it went. If you want to come get some. And we were like, just desperate to get past that feeling at the moment. We kind of thought like, okay, let's go get a line. We'll come back. We'll deal with it. We'll figure out like next steps.
How did you figure out it was heroin? Did he tell you?
Yep. He told us.
And were you guys buying it from him, or was
I think he tried to say like the first time it was Xanax, and then after that it was like he was crushing up heroin lines. So
were you guys buying it from him, or was he just giving it to you to get you hooked?
We had like that deal working where I was driving him because I had a car and he didn't.
Yeah.
And he was giving us drugs back for it.
Oh, okay.
So we weren't buying it yet. We were just had this deal going where it was like beneficial to both of us at the time.
So now you go back to him to get rid of the withdrawal, and now you and your boyfriend are doing it all the time?
Yeah. So then we're like, all right, let's go get some. We'll come back. We'll figure out a plan how to get off this. We'll take less and less like over a course of days or whatever. But we weren't prepared also for like the cravings part of withdrawing. And so we go get some, and we get home and we get sick again. And we're like, I don't know how to get through this. We're just going to keep going. We're going to keep going. And then we keep going with the same guy. And one day I'm driving and I'm like, we're going to Detroit. So we're driving 40 minutes. We're driving back home. And I'm like, all right, I look in my rearview mirror and I see him take out a needle. So then I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I really lose it because then I'm really freaked out. I'm so young. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's so much less harmless feeling when you're just like snorting lines for some reason
Yeah.
than when you're taking out a needle. So I'm
A
like,
needle crosses the line. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, what are you doing? And somehow being young, we let him, he's just like, oh, this is totally fine, dude. Like, let me show you something. So when you do it this way, you only use this much compared to like this much when you're crushing it up and snorting it. So this is actually a lot more effective and you have to use way less and it lasts you like all week. You could take one of these packs all week or whatever. So we're like, oh shit. Okay. Like that makes sense. Like, that's when shooting up began. So
So you did try it.
he talked us into that being the way better way, the more like efficient way, the easier way, and basically taught us what to do. So we were like, okay, let's try this way.
Did you guys have friends, like other friends other than each other?
So what happened in 6th grade when I met Phil, I was like in the popular type of girls group and we were really like clicked up. And then when I met Phil, they did not agree because he was the bad boy. And they were like, no, I don't think you should date him, this, that, the other. And I basically had one of my friends turn all my friends against me. And then they made like this thing where like none of them were going to hang out with me if I dated Phil. But like at that stage of my life, that's what I was looking for because I guess I never had a father figure. I just didn't have the stability I was looking for. And he was like so sly with things in 6th grade. He would like sneak me money into my locker and like do all these things that I never had.
So throughout this whole time, it was just you and him pretty much?
Just us. Like my friends weren't around at all. No, I had like through school, once we made it to 9th grade, I had met like another set of friends. They were more of like the pot smokers.
Yeah.
But they weren't doing heroin. And when they found out they definitely like had to put, that distance because they realized they couldn't really do anything about it. Like,
so nobody told on you guys? Nobody found out?
My mom, no one told. No one told. It was more just like little things started adding up. Like we were leaving all the time with the car. And I started asking my mom for money a lot. I was like, we want to go to the movies. Like, can I get $20? And then it became like going to the movies or getting gas or like doing things every day. And she started being like, no, like I can't just keep giving you $20 every day, And at some point we hit it so good, but at some point, I think maybe like our track marks were visible. My mom did find out. I don't know I don't remember what led up to it. Maybe she found like empty bags or syringes or something, but she did find out eventually and then did like what is the word? I'm having brain fog right now, but pulled me out of school one day.
Intervention. Yeah.
Yes, the intervention. Pulled me out of school one day. They get a call. I'm like literally withdrawing in 5th hour. So that's how it started. Like I couldn't get high before school. I was so sick sitting in my classes and I'm just like withdrawing in 5th hour, counting down the minutes to the end of the day. And at this point, I think my boyfriend had dropped out or something. He was like not in school with me. So I was like hoping maybe he was making something work outside of school and after school was planning on, getting high again. My mom comes and picks me up. Didn't pick me up, actually. They said, Dana, you're going to go to the office. Your mom's here. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. Walk out of my class. There's 2 police officers standing there. And they're like, Dana, we're going to take you to this ambulance outside. So they took me to the ambulance, took me to Pontiac General, and then ran some tests. The whole time I'm just so irate. I'm like, how fuck could you? Like, I can't believe you're doing this. And scream my head off. And she's like, Dana, you're going to rehab. So she takes me against my will to rehab, which I totally understand as a mom. But at the time, I'm like, feel so betrayed. I couldn't even, like, I'm so sick. I'm so angry. I have so many emotions going through me. And the only thing I wanted was to not feel like this anymore. I'm like, I just need to get high. Like, my body's itching. I'm sweating. I have cold sweats. I'm throwing up, like all these things. So she gets me there. There was like the only adolescent rehab at the time because I'm still under 18.
Yeah.
So it's all the way like up in Saginaw. She gets me there and she's like, does intake, whatever. And I call my boyfriend. I'm not to there knowing. I'm like, can I use the phone? I need to call my mom. And I call my boyfriend. I'm like, you got to come get me. Like, my mom freaking did this intervention. I'm up at rehab. And I ended up, after a day or 2 days, like running. And he picked me up from a Taco Bell.
So you got out?
I got out. I left. He picked me up from a Taco Bell. And my mom was so pissed. So then we started living at my boyfriend's house. My boyfriend at the time, my mom was letting him live with us, spend the night and everything. Because I mentioned briefly before that he had gotten a fight with his parents. And she was letting him, at 16 years old, spend the night. And now looking back again, I'm like, how could she? How could she? Like, I just don't agree. So he was living with us. Then obviously after that, we were like, my mom was like, don't even come by here, like, at all. So then started like some part of like doing criminal things to get money at that point.
You and your boyfriend?
Me, my boyfriend, at this point, we have like a couple other people getting high with us. So kind of like a group of us.
And did his parents know what was going on?
Yes. His brother too. So his brother was also on heroin now at this point with us, who was also 2 years apart from us, older. So now at this point, we're all kind of in it together. He's also in a relationship with a girl who's also on it. So there was like the 4 of us would kind of like figure out how we could get money for the day, who we could call, what we could do, like started scheming and seeing like as a group how we could get high, basically.
And his parents just let this all ride?
His parents are not even first generation. They're straight from Romania. So they're foreign. And they're kind of like, they know, but they're very Christian, Pentecostal. So like they knew, but like I don't know how to explain it. They knew, but like they didn't have the heart to like, they did kick like David and his girlfriend out at one point, but like, and they did all the time fight, like, how, like, get out of here, blah, blah, blah. But like at the end of the night, he always like, he didn't have that authority. He could just come in, we could sleep on the couch and like, they would scream at us, but he could kind of do what he wanted.
So were you still in school at that point or did you drop out?
I was still in school. So I was still going to school every day. I was still passing somehow. And I ended up, after going to rehab.
The rehab that you escaped from?
Yes. I think I went back there again. It's all kind. I went to rehab a lot of times. So I think I went back there again at another point and was like, all right, I'm going to stay here for like a week. And then after that time, because my mom, she was like, you're not something or something. She wouldn't give me the car or wouldn't do something without me going to rehab. So she was like, you're going to have to go to rehab. So I ended up doing like a week there or whatever insurance covered.
And so when all of this is going on, you're still in school, you're still maintaining your grades somehow, but how were you guys buying this? Was anybody working?
No, yeah, so not yes, actually. So after I went there for a week, I ended up having to switch schools because at that point they're like, all right, you were gone for a week or maybe it was 2 weeks or something. I had missed a certain amount of credits. They're like, let's put you in the alternative school and you'll graduate from there still with the diploma of your school. So I ended up going there. We do. Me and my husband or boyfriend at the time ended up getting jobs at the same place. And then we do have jobs on and off throughout this addiction because you obviously can't work when you're like sick all the time. So we did here and there have jobs, but they never lasted too long. I think I worked at my first job at 16 for like 6 months or so.
Okay.
So that lasted and held us through a while. And then after that, we were pawning shit. We were panhandling. It was usually me because I was young and a girl and I could go to the gas station and be like, hey, I'm so sorry. Do you have like a couple dollars for gas you could spare? Like, and they would have more like empathy for you than my boyfriend. They'd be like, get this guy away from here. But I still maintained a somewhat like innocent type of like persona. So usually I would just like ask someone who looked like a grandpa or like an older guy who I knew could like be like, oh, it's like my granddaughter or something, you know?
Yeah. So did you eventually graduate?
I did eventually graduate and I did some college too. So I graduated. My dad wanted me to go to college, went to college for a little bit.
So at this point you're talking to your dad again?
I was talking to my dad ever since we had those visitations. He did cut me out after he found out I was doing heroin. But then it would be like, oh, Dana's clean, when in reality, no one knew I was like relapsed and still using heroin. But I would go through these like relationship things where like people would be like, oh, Dana's clean again. We can like let her back in. And then I'd relapse and it's like a revolving door, kind of the same shit after so long.
Was it only heroin?
It was heroin and weed. So
okay. So you graduated, you're still talking to your dad, you started college and you're maintaining your drug habit, your education.
Somehow, yes.
And what was your boyfriend doing?
Hopefully getting us drugs during while I'm at school and stuff. So he was just like, you know, working towards getting us stuff while I'm at school. A lot of the time didn't because I had the car but I had to maintain this persona to have a car and have the ability to have these freedoms that were like getting us stuff. So eventually I dropped out of college and I was like, I don't want to go to college. Like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. And then that's kind of where things got really crazy. I didn't have a job. We were panhandling a lot. We pawned everything that we could. And then we were with some guys that had this gig that they would steal lawnmowers. And so, and throughout this time, I probably had been to rehab like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 times and just gotten out and keep like relapsing. Like I never wanted, all those times was against my will and I never actually wanted to get clean. I was like, stop sending me to freaking rehab. Like I don't want to get clean. And then so I would just get right back out and get high again. And even though I did, like, there's part of you that wants to get clean the whole time. You're like, I hate like doing this to my family. I hate like, but it's just such a strong drug that like at that point I had been 4 or 5 years using it. I couldn't imagine my life without it. Like it started so young that like that was my new reality. That's all I knew. So I'd like the thought of being clean scared the crap out of me. I was like, I don't know how to live without this. I really don't.
So you weren't thinking, especially at that age, of the damage and destruction that you were doing to your body, or
No, I felt invincible. I literally felt invincible. I'm like, yeah, I'm young. I can heal. Like I was getting away with stuff. There's like a high in like doing stuff, stealing lawnmowers or whatever and getting away with it. And then you're getting high. And then you're like, at that point, you're not thinking about all the damage you're doing to everyone else either. But I always felt this major, major guilt about everything I was doing. But then getting high, it would make it like, you'd forget about it.
go away. So were you still maintaining a relationship with your family and your siblings? Were you fooling them? Did they know what was going on?
I was fooling them on and off. And then they were definitely getting sick of my shit. They were like, are you serious? Like my dad, I think at this point had cut me out completely because it was just doing so much damage to him. He just like thought he was going to lose his daughter. So he was like, I can't maintain a relationship with you when you're literally killing yourself. And so I wasn't talking to him anymore. And then my mom was just so easily manipulated, which is so terrible to say, but I could literally like, she knew what to look for, like pinned pupils. That's how she would always get me. She would look at my arms. She knew what to look for, but at the same time, like I could keep it together for long enough that I could fool her. And she would think that like shit's going good.
So how long did it last like that?
It didn't last. So eventually, so at this point, my boyfriend's brother, who we were getting high with, was kicked out of his parents' house for good. They weren't allowed there because they were physically abusive to each other. Me and my boyfriend weren't physically abusive. When you're on drugs, you fight a lot, but it wasn't physical to the point where like his brother and girlfriend were literally like throwing punches at each other. So they were like, get out.
Like drug induced. Okay.
Yes. So they were literally evil on it. I could literally see the second they did their drugs, they would turn just like evil. And that's kind of what it does. It does that to a lot of people and just makes them instantly angry for some reason.
And you guys maintained your relationship like that?
Yeah, it was not a good relationship. It was toxic at the time. So
with you and your boyfriend?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So we did, but so they were kicked out and they just threw up a tent in the backyard of their parents' yard. So they were living back there. So we were back there with them one night getting high. All of a sudden, the tent is surrounded by like 8 police. And it had been an on and off thing with my boyfriend. He got into trouble at a young age. So he had like a juvenile record. And so they had already known who the family was. Like they had been following my boyfriend for so many years. They were following us and they surrounded the tent. They were like, oh, you guys are coming with us. We got you on this, this, and this. So they arrest us.
Busted.
Yep. We all go to jail that night. I don't think his brother and girlfriend did. It was mostly me and my boyfriend who were hanging out with this specific group stealing the lawnmowers.
Was this the first time you guys went to jail?
Me, yes. Him, no.
Okay. What was he in jail for before?
Actually, no. This wasn't the first time for me either. We stole from Walmart one time and we got a second-degree retail fraud. So I did on that case just a few days because they sentenced me to probation because it was my first charge.
And you were a minor, I'm assuming?
And I was 17 or something. Yeah, so they gave me some special probation where if I completed it, it would drop off my record.
So at this time when they take all 4 of you to jail, you're not a minor anymore?
No, and I'm like 18 now, and I had a warrant because I never finished that probation. That's what they took me in on, was my warrant. They took my husband. I think he had a warrant too or something. He always had a warrant for something, it felt like. And so they take us in on warrants. But then a couple days in, while we're waiting to be like arraigned and stuff on things, the detectives come and are like, we got you guys on all of these home invasions. for stealing the lawnmowers out of people's garage. So even though the garage was open, it seemed like easy access, like, oh, we'll just take the lawnmower and go. Well, turns out the people are home. So they got us on a violent charge because the people were home. First degree is violent because they say your intentions are you wouldn't break into someone's house if they're home unless you have violent intentions. So they totally screwed us with that, even though they knew we were after lawnmowers. I think they just really wanted to, like, I don't know, throw the book at us and get it over with. So they have like, they end up getting everyone, me, my boyfriend, and the two other guys we were doing it with, and we all suffered from that. And that was actually, that was what really put us away for a long time. However, now that I'm thinking about it, I did a year before that. I did go to jail before that for 1 whole year in county jail for, actually, that's what I got sentenced to, 1 whole year in county jail for the home invasion. So I did a whole year. My boyfriend, having priors, got 3 years. So he was riding out to prison.
So now you're separated.
So now we're separated. He actually ends up posting bail. My parents wouldn't bail me out. They're like, hell no. Like, you're going to stay in there. We already know what's up. He somehow posted bail, went on the run, and got caught up later and ended up doing those 3 years.
So what happened? So you guys are separated. What happened? Did you get?
We're separated, and we end up breaking up because he writes me a letter. Like, I posted bail, or calls me or something. I call, my mom is like, Phil's out. Like, he's out. And I'm like, what? How's he out? Like, so then I set something up to where I can talk to him. And I'm like, how the hell did you get out? Blah, blah, blah. And I could tell he's high. And then I get really pissed because I'm like, I feel like I'm in this all on my own at this point. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I have to do this all by my own. I'm like deep into withdrawing. I'm puking and like having diarrhea and can't sleep. And I'm cold and hot and itching and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he's out doing shady shit. I hear it from my sister. I hear it from like everyone. Like, he's seeing girls. He's like doing things now. And I'm like, whatever. Like, I cut him out. I don't even talk to him. I'm like, I'm doing my own thing. And I do my year. And in that year, he gets caught up and he goes to prison. And I did my year and I didn't want nothing to do with him. I was like, screw you. Like, you totally left me alone doing all that. And so that's my first real sobriety. I do that year and I maintain probation and I do all my probation and stuff. And I think I tried to talk to him maybe on like their JPay service or something, but I was still really mad at him. But he was like, you know, my love, my life. Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to see what he's up to. And so I get out and my sisters are both now at this point. My little sister's graduated. My older sister's 2 years older. And my older sister started dancing at a topless bar. Mm-hmm. And so my younger sister joined her. And now they both dance at topless bars. So yeah. I get out. I'm on probation. And I'm like, dang, you guys are dancing? Like, do you make good money? And they're like, we're not taking you with us. Like, we already know what you know, like with heroin recovery and stuff, there's a lot of stuff floating around there and drinking and drugs and stuff. So what do? I go on my own with one of my other friends who I find out is topless dancing. And I'm like, you are too? What the heck? So I go with her and she's like, yeah, you can come with me, girl. Like, let's go. And I start doing that.
So did that open the door right back up for you?
That opened the door right back up for me because I found out she was also now suddenly doing heroin. I haven't talked to her since probably 9th grade. And we had reconnected over Facebook or something. And she somehow got into heroin too. It really started blowing up after I graduated high school. And then I started seeing like especially with getting high. Like all these people from different schools and stuff that I knew. One kid from one of the local high schools that was friends with a lot of the people that I hung out with overdosed and died. Like people started dropping off, and then you start seeing like, okay, this is really becoming a thing. Because when I started in ninth grade, no one had touched it or done it or anything. It was like really taboo, which then it became more of like an epidemic. People started just like, it blew up.
So now you found all these people, and did you find comfort in doing it again, or like
Not
why did
comfort.
you
I
go
was still
back?
just, it just felt familiar. It's not that it was comforting. I hated it. I hated what it did to my family. I hated how it made me feel. I hated fighting with everyone because I'm angry on it. I hated it. But again, it was just like my brain was just like so connected habitually to it that it was like, let's just do it again. Like I knew it would make me feel good.
So you were sober for a year and now you're back into it. So did you just go full force, and were you
So
living at
then,
home?
yep, I just dropped out of probation again. I kept up the lie to my mom for a while because I'm living with my mom again. And I kept telling her, like, hey, can I get, the car? I'm going to go to probation and I'm going to the hood. And
Did she know where you were working?
she did. And again, that was another thing about my mom. Like, she didn't care that we were all topless dancers.
All three of her daughters.
She literally was like, you guys need your own reality TV show. Like, and I was like,
Mom.
at the time, I'm like, you're fucking right. We do. But
Right.
like now
Yeah.
looking back, I'm like, how could she? How could she? Like, my mom, though, she had a really good job for a really long time. She was the main provider. She was making, 6 figures a year. And she was working at Beaumont and she had a really good job. And then during all of our drug use and stuff, shit hit the fan and she hurt her back at work and she never went back, and she started looking for disability and trying to file for that and didn't have a case and then had to go to doctors, and it was this huge thing that blew up in her life. So I don't think she could really see at that point. We were 16 and stuff. She was focused on herself, that she didn't see her daughter was doing heroin. Like her life was unraveling because then when she stopped working, she only had so much savings to live off that we ended up starting to lose our house. And so then our house is getting foreclosed. Meanwhile, we're still living there with my boyfriend getting high. And she ends up, they have her on about 12 different meds, including oxys and like all these crazy narcotics. She starts literally going downhill. Like I'm watching my mom as I'm doing drugs, like go downhill. Because she had everything when I was a child. I like looked up to her all the way up here. And then for her to hurt her back and then go like all the way down here, I was like, how is this possible? So that also fueled my addiction to like, I couldn't believe I was watching my mom unravel like this. And it just fueled everything. So then she spent the next 6 years or so losing the house, going through all this turmoil, trying to get approved for disability or social security or something to afford now an apartment or something. So, and in that time, she tried to drop off of her medication she was on and starts growing pot. She starts using medicinal marijuana because at that time it just became legal for medical use. So she's like, I'm going to try using pot as for medical use. And she has her card, but at that time you needed a caregiver's license to grow. And she didn't have that, and she grew anyway. And my sister called the cops on her.
Why?
And it was all over the news, like, daughter calls cops on mom for growing marijuana. And because my sister was like a stickler, my older sister, and hated my mom, and like they didn't get along. No one really got along with her. So she ended up calling the cops on my mom.
So did your mom go to jail?
She got tons of felonies, but she didn't go to jail because she's never even had a traffic ticket. So she had, from being in an abusive relationship, she had her CCW. So she had guns and
Mhm.
she was growing. And so she got felony manufacture and distribute. They tried to charge her with felony firearm because the guns were in the house with the pot. And like I think they tried to charge her with like 2 or 3 for each gun. And they dropped it all down to just, I think, the manufacture and distribute charge.
So did all of this just push you further down the,
Oh
well,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and I'm
And
just
so
gonna keep doing what I'm doing?
and my mom at this point goes from having all these like this moral code up here to like down here. Like she also spirals down and I watch it all happen. And so when she makes that comment about you guys should have a reality TV show, I just kind of like ha 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 laugh it off. But like now looking back, I'm like, what the like so yeah, I to pick up where we left off, I started the topless dancing with my friend and relapsed.
Mhm. So where did the relapse take you at that point?
Took
After
me
a
to
year of being clean, now you're back into it.
I know. It took me to not showing up to probation.
Mhm.
Then I have another warrant out for my arrest now for a felony probation violation. So I never the cops I think come to my mom's a few times, but I wasn't ever there. And so one time I think I just get it's like this goes on. I got out in June. By July or August, I relapsed again. And I'm dancing. And then I tell my mom, I'm like, Mom, I'm like, I need to go to rehab. I'm using again. So I go to rehab. I meet a
The
guy
third
there.
time that you asked for it.
Yep. I'm like, I'm ready to like go in and get this over with. I'm so sick of ripping and running. Like at this point, it was just like too much. And I'm like, I need to go to rehab. And she's like, all right, I'll take you. So she takes me and I'm there for like 4 days or something, but I end up meeting a guy there.
Mhm.
And then same old pattern kicks in where I'm like, he's like, we should go. I'm like, yeah, we should go. Like, let me call one of my friends. And I have a friend come pick me us up, and we leave together. And then I'm ripping and running with this guy for a while. So then eventually that exhausts itself too. And I'm like, we need to get clean. And so my oldest sister's in Salt Lake City. And I'm like, you know what we're gonna do? Let's go to Salt Lake and visit my sister. Like, we'll drive out there. That'll be like our time to get clean. We'll you know, do a pack before we leave. So like withdrawals won't kick in till later when we're driving. And we have it all planned out. We're going to go visit my sister and get clean together. So that lasts the one day until we get sick again. And then we're like fighting. And then we're like states away in Iowa. And we're on like day 2 or 3 of withdrawals. And I'm like, we need to find something. Like we need to get these withdrawals done because anyone who's withdrawn from heroin knows like your body's so antsy, it kills you. It kills you to feel this. Like it's the most uncomfortable feeling in the world. And like your heart's beating out of your chest, like your blood pressure's so high, it's insane where it's just so uncomfortable. Um So then we're searching everywhere in Iowa to get dope. Like, and so we're stopping at gas stations. This lady called the cops on us at this gas station. She's like, "Get out of here!" Like, I'm calling the cops. So we drive another couple hours, stop for some gas stations over there, and look. We end up finding meth, and we're like, maybe we should just try this. We tried it. It did nothing for us. I mean, we've been doing downers, at least I have my whole life. So I didn't know what to expect. It did nothing but make me want to crawl out of my skin more.
Mhm.
So then we do this meth. We stop to get gas somewhere. I'm inside buying snacks and like paying for the gas. And because I'm still dancing at this time. So I'm the one with the money and he's
Yeah.
basically just leeching off me. So I stop to buy snacks. I go outside and my car is gone. And I'm like, what the fuck? like, where's my car? Like, I was driving us, and I'm stranded in Iowa. And I'm like, I can't find out where he went. I don't know what happened to my car. I have no idea anything. And now I'm stranded in Iowa. And I'm like, who do I call? What do I do? I don't want to call my family. Like, I don't remember what I do. I asked some guy there. I'm like, I'm stranded. My boyfriend just left. I don't know where he went. And this guy buys me a bus ticket. And he's like, here, I'll buy you a bus ticket to Utah. And so he ends up buying me a bus ticket and takes me to the bus stop. Some random old guy takes me to the bus stop, and I make it to Salt Lake City. And then my sister picks me up from the bus station, and I just lose it. I start bawling. I'm like, Chrissy, you have no idea. This is what I've been doing for this long. And I just tell her my whole story. I tell her about dancing. I tell her everything. And I'm like, I can't stay here. I'm so sick. I need to go home. And so I never ended up visiting her. I feel so bad to this day because I went there to visit her and ended up making her like help me get a bus ticket home because I was so sick and I couldn't do it. And she did. She bought me a bus ticket home. And then I got home, I got high, and I decided I was going to turn myself in on my felony warrant. I was like, I just need to get this over with. So I think like another month goes by in between that time where I got home. I dance a little bit, I get high a little bit, and then I tell my mom I'm ready to turn myself in. And she's like, okay. So then I like still have the pictures to this day. I've got all dressed up in my whites. I layered like 3 white t-shirts, sports bras, underwear, everything I would need so I didn't have to buy it on commissary when I got there. I was just like so prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And turned myself in on that and ended up going to prison.
What switched for you? Was it being stranded? Was it like what?
It was everything. It was the chaos of my life that I never imagined for myself. Like as a child, I was the peacemaker. I was like the loving one in my family. I was like just innocent and whatever, and it all got ruined from that moment on. I was stealing and scheming and lying all the time. Everything was a lie to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so emotionally and physically like tired. I was just too tired, and I ended up giving myself a liver issue, hepatitis C. So I physically, like on an actual level, my body was like, F you. Like, so I just hit my rock bottom. I really did. Like I was dancing at that point. I didn't like who I'd become with that. I didn't like any of it. I just felt gross about myself. I was like, ew, like what has my life become? Like I hated it.
So you came to the realization that you were not you. You weren't being you.
I was like, I'm the furthest thing from me. Like people around me were dying all the time. Like people in my like getting high with me. Like we lost my brother's girlfriend died. Or my boyfriend's brother's girlfriend, who we were getting high with all the time, died. This other girl we went with all the time died. Like everyone just started dropping like flies, and that wasn't really on my radar. But they tell you in rehab all the time, like, you could be next, and you're like, yeah, whatever, that won't happen to me. But it really was happening all around me. And again, I was just so disgusted by who I became. I was like, I can't maintain this anymore. I just like want my life back.
How old were you?
19
at that point. So you went to prison, not rehab, right?
Actually, I was 20 at that point.
Okay.
So yep, then I went to prison. I turned myself in on my felony warrant. They resentenced me on probation violation, and they gave me that sentence. The original sentence carried 2 to 20 years. So they gave me 2 years with the ability to do like a military based boot camp. And So that's what I ended up doing. I rode out to prison and I was on grounds for like 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then they switched me over to the boot camp.
How long were you there?
The boot camp was 90 days. And I honestly give credit to that boot camp for changing my life, because they drill you. Like, they literally drill you like you're in the military. You can't make eye contact with them. You can't speak without permission. It's literally a military boot camp. You have to like sandbag all your belongings, bring it to your room, make your bed like the military, put your stuff in your thing like the military. Like, it's literally like you're being in the military. But at the same time, when they're not like drilling you, you go to like these hour-long classes of like rewiring your brain. So that reprogramming helped a lot, for sure.
So it wasn't just the physical, like the discipline and the structure of the physical portion of like restoring your body, but they did the actual psychological work with you too.
Yeah, they
What
did.
were they doing? Was it like mind mapping? Was it?
It was more like it was more like, so you had to qualify for this boot camp. You had to be like, have certain charges, be maybe under a certain age, can't be multiple offender. So it was really a lot of us young girls who had gotten into trouble. So they kind of, like, do classes where they make you think about what you've done, like imagine how your parents feel, and like do a lot of reflection type stuff. And then also, like, I just remember them like explaining how thankful you should be, and like teaching like gratitude, like gratitude and reflection and all these different like things, to where when you left there, you're like, holy moly, like you have all these tools now, instead of just being thrown in a cell and like, trying to wait your time out till you can get out again.
Or just having your ass kicked by going through a boot camp.
Yeah. No, they did like the mental work with you.
So was the mental work the entire 90 days that you were there?
It was. You had like an hour, maybe 2, I don't remember really, but you had like a class a day at least of this like classroom type setting where you'd go and do whatever modules they had.
So when you were done, were you like, I am free, I am me? Like what what happens on day 91?
I was done, I really succeeded in the boot camp. I became like the like, I don't know the correct terminology right now, but like the line leader. So I'd call out our chants while we're doing our like we literally had to do like the left, right, like our drills. Yeah. So like I would be the one calling it out and leading us on our drills. And like on graduation day, I was the one who got to drill us the whole way to the graduation hall. So I just felt like I succeeded in that, and I felt good about that. And I was like, just excited. I was excited to like get out and change my life.
So what did you do with that?
Yeah, I had like so much. They just reprogrammed you. Like, you're still so, you have all this time. You can still do whatever you want. And that's kind of how I entered the world again.
So were you excited or scared? Because like you get out and now you don't have your day planned for you every single day. So it's like, oh no, I hope I don't fall back into old habits.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I set goals. That's another thing they did in there. They're like, you need to have goals. Like, we're going to work on like a goal thing. Like, I think we made like vision boards. And so I was really excited to get out and get a job and get my own place and do all these things that I felt a little bit like behind on. And I was just really looking forward to it. I was scared because now I had this felony on my record that I knew was going to F me over finding a job. And so, but I knew I had like the tools, including living with my mom, to like take me to work and stuff to like get through it. And my mom was like a major supporter at that time too, even though I don't agree with her parenting style. She was definitely like my best friend and like my main supporter, who always took me back in when like I effed up. She would still be there like, I love you, like let's get through this. You ended up marrying your boyfriend that you
started you on this dark path. How did you
Yes.
find him again?
Well, so after I'm out, I get a job and I'm on Tether. They have me on a Tether so they can track me and everything and make sure I'm at work and all this stuff. So I live my life. I get a job. I make a lot of new friends at that job. Like, I'm friends with everyone I work with, and I worked there for years. So I build like these good, solid friendships there. And I end up literally within a year of getting out parole. My mom is like, I'm leaving. She met someone and leaves me. She's like, you can take over the lease of our apartment. I'm moving to Florida with this guy I met. So I end up taking over the lease, and one of my girlfriends that I met at my work moves in with me, and we live together. So then that lasts a while till we get a new place together, because eventually they're like, you can't just take over your mom's lease like this. Leasing office finds out and is like, no, for some reason we don't meet some type of qualification. And we end up getting a new place in the city where I live, like downtown area. And so we're like, I'm just living my life at this point. I turned 21 and we're hitting all the bars down there at that point, and I'm living a normal life. I'm still not getting high. Like, I still am living great. And I'm just like, I want to talk to Phil. I want to see like what he's up to. So then I log into my little JPay, put some money on there, and start talking to him. And he's like,
He was in prison, right?
Yep. So when he got caught, 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and he had so many offenses, they put him in a maximum security prison. So he was all the way in the farthest area of the UP you can go. And so I was just like, but he kept contact with my mom, because my mom was like a mother to him. He lived with us when he was 16, and she knew him since we were 12 when we met in 6th grade. And so she was like a mother figure to him. She would put money on his commissary and stuff, and they talked. So then I would hear through her stuff, which is what made me want to reach out to him. I was like, I want to see what he's up to, because she'd always like, she loved him like a son, talked all these great things about him. And I'm like, let me see. So I reached out to him, and we didn't get along, because it was like, I'm living my own life, doing my own thing. I don't agree with the things he was doing. So now we're like butting heads on all these things we were doing while the other wasn't around, including like me leaving
with another guy.
Yeah, with another guy, and going to Salt Lake City and all these things. So
he's like, you reconnect, and he's like, F you, I don't like what you've been doing, and you guys are butting heads. So
yeah. But then as time goes on, like, there's still that little tingle of like, I still like you though. So I'm just like still writing him regularly, and then eventually we have like phone calls, and then we start talking. But he still has this like I don't want to see you when I get out attitude. Like, I just don't think we're good for each other type stuff. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm clean. Like, I've been doing all this stuff. And eventually, all these years pass. It feels like all these years. It was probably like another whole year and a half. And he gets out, and I'm living with my friend, a different friend at this time. And I'm like, let me come pick you up, and let's go get some food. And then it was kind of like the rest was history. Like, he got out, we went and got some food, we started hanging out all the time, and he ends up moving in with me and my friend on parole. He's on parole now, and going to work. He's, like I said, he's first generation Romanian. So he ends up starting doing like tiling and stuff for friends of friends, like these Romanians that have a tiling business. And he ends up doing that for a long time. We're living together, that we end up getting our own place together. And I'm pregnant. I find out I'm pregnant. So
How old were you?
24.
So years have gone by at this
Yeah,
point.
so literally like he had those 3 years to do
Yeah.
when I was on parole, and he did all 3 of those years. So, and I must have been 21 then, I guess, maybe. I was 24 when I got pregnant, so.
So he didn't do the like the mental work that you did though.
No, he didn't, but he was so hell-bent on staying clean because he had a terrible prison time. He was in a maximum security prison with violent criminals up like in the middle of
Nasty.
nowhere.
Yeah, nasty.
Nasty prison time. Like he was seeing the worst of the worst in there, and he was just like, F this, I'm never going through this again.
So when you guys reconnected, he's living with you. Was your relationship healthy at that point?
It was. We had a lot of trauma to work through. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely so much trauma to work through where we had nights like literally I remember one night just bawling my eyes out, crying to him like about stuff. Like I don't even remember exactly what, but I remember just like holding each other and we're both bawling. Just like there was so much trauma and toxicity in our past that we had to work through. And we worked through a lot of it in that first year. He was home because I found out I was pregnant after he got home. So he had probably been home like, about a year. So we worked through a lot of it that first year, but then seeing him become a dad, that really was like another like push in his like, what's the word? Like his like molding into a better person. Like it gave him that other drive to like be better and do better.
How did you guys work through those traumas?
Just like talking and being open with each other. And like it was never at this point anything like I want to get high. We never had to like support each other through that because we already now had gotten past that and we both had so much sobriety behind us to where it was never anything like that. It was just working through like setting boundaries, like after having no boundaries for so long, setting boundaries and being like, this is how I deserve to be treated. This is how I deserve to be treated. I don't want any of that toxicity. And it was a lot of learning because even like, or unlearning behaviors, because even like as time passed, there would be like triggers where, I don't know, maybe like guys are commenting on my page where he would have like that reaction, that toxic reaction, like, who's this? And he has like that lack of trust because he's been gone. And I'd have to be like, oh, that's so-and-so. And maybe it would like, and then be reestablishing boundaries again and doing a lot of this work. There was so much work over such a long period of time where literally just now, like, not just now, but I'd say in the last like few years or so, like I feel like we've made it past that, but it took a good 5 years, even after my daughter. Like we still were working, and the only thing that kept us working at it is staying together, because honestly, a lot of the times it'd be easier to just leave,
Right. Yeah.
But we have a daughter now, so it was like we're in this together, like, and we're gonna do different than our parents did, and that was a main motivator for me. Like I didn't want to repeat the cyclical pattern of a divorced household and the freedom of single mom trying to have to work all day now and a dad who works all day already. So like I didn't want that for my kids. Now I have 2 daughters, but I just knew that I didn't want that. So it's like either work through it because to me that's my only option, and I love him and he loves me. So it's like there's an understanding there that we're gonna work through these things.
Do either one of you fight the trigger of addiction?
No, I don't. We don't have like addiction to heroin, I would say. But for a lot of years, we both smoked medical marijuana. And that was kind of like somewhat of a coping mechanism and a tool and like whatever, like
Yeah.
it wasn't like a gateway for us. It was kind of like what we used as like a coping mechanism now. And I actually just recently gave that up like a year ago, but he still smokes and it is extremely hard for him to stop. And he says that all the time. He can't stop. He literally can't. And my sister too, my younger sister and my mom, like my whole family smokes now and none of them can stop. And I get so frustrated because I've been through addiction.
Yeah.
And I've stopped and I gave it up a year ago, like cold turkey, some would say. Like I just stopped and I made a decision I was going to stop and I wasn't going to pick it up. And because my lungs were literally giving out on me, I was like, I can't keep smoking.
Yeah.
And I get so frustrated at all of them. I'm like, where's your self-control? Like, come on, you guys. But he does in that sense, like, because he literally has told me so many times, like, oh, I need to quit smoking or whatever. And he's not able to, like, give that up yet.
Does that scare you that it might?
Not really, because it's
else?
not, like I said, like a gateway per se.
Right.
But I'm just like, I get more frustrated than anything. I'm like, you've kicked way freaking harder. Like, you
Yeah.
can give it up, no problem. And it just seems like a form of weakness to me. And I'm like, why? Like, I did it. You can do it. So I get frustrated more than anything about it.
So is there certain things that you have to go through in your mind every single day to set yourself up to have this life that you want so that you aren't ever revisiting where you've been?
You know, at this point, I just have, so now this year, December, I'm 11 years clean. And
good for you.
Yeah, I'm going to be 32 in January. So this all ended when I was 20-ish, 20 years old. So, now we just have so much to lose. Like my husband owns his own business after doing tiling and stuff. He got his certification to become like a licensed builder. And so now he owns his own building company and we have kids and we have so much to lose where I don't have to sit in my thoughts these days and like tell myself, you know, like just for today, where in the beginning, maybe that was something more that I had to work through. But not anymore just because there's too much to lose. And it honestly feels like that chapter's closed. Like I would never open that chapter back up and subject my family and my kids to anything like that. And neither would my husband, I know for a fact. That's why I'm not ever like scared per se, just more like frustrated with his lack of self-control with smoking.
Do you plan to be open with your kids about this?
I do one day. Like obviously my daughter is 7 and 5. Well, they're about to be 6 and 8, but I think there's the timing is right type of thing for,
definitely.
You know, when like, you know, maybe they're dipping their foot in the water for, you know, smoking or something when they're in middle or high school, like when people get introduced like around 16-ish and stuff like that. Like there's a time and place for that. I might have to have this conversation later, but not until it's needed. I don't think, you know, I don't want to just offer it up and be like, you know, hey, this is what I went through. I try to keep the trauma to a low.
Yeah, right. So you understand all of that trauma. So you're being aware of what your daughters are going through and how you're raising them and like the parenting techniques that you're using, not necessarily to be, well, my mom was this, so I need to be opposite of her.
Exactly.
But it's more of being aware.
Definitely aware. Definitely a lot of therapy. Like I went to therapy and, you know, talked to therapists and stuff, but like I have the mental capacity to know like what I went through, what I don't want my kids to go through, and try to have some sense of normalcy. Like I saw all these other kids growing up with these normal families where I didn't have that. And I wanted like make things as normal as possible to give my kids like the best type of upbringing they could possibly have. I don't want to tell them like, oh, mommy was an addict, and then that like opens a door for them knowing stuff. Like I know a lot of people from my past are super open with their kids, and I'm like, I want them to think we're just another run of the
Normal.
mill family right now,
Mhm.
like maybe one day when they're pissing me off because they're getting into things they shouldn't be, then I'll drop the bomb of what I went through. But it's like a big bomb on
It
like,
is gonna be a bomb.
yeah, their type of like normal life.
Yeah. So are you in relationship with your mom and dad?
I am. I talk to my dad daily. My mom, we just butt heads a lot because there's a lot of trauma there too, where I don't agree with parenting styles and things that we went through. And she blames me for I should have known better at 15. Like, and I'm like, I was home alone. Like, I didn't have the education to know, what heroin withdrawals and all that I explained to you. Like, I was just another kid trying to cope with
Mhm.
stuff, and so we don't see eye to eye on what we've been through, and that recently came up in an argument we had. So we haven't talked in a while because of that argument where we just kind of butt heads on those things. But before that, I had a pretty close relationship. We talk daily, but she now she kind of went backwards in life, where like I said, when she was all the way up here and then she dropped down
Yeah.
here, she's still down here and she's still on a lot of medication, and kind of, like, I don't know, I just don't agree with the way her life is panned out, and she's just okay with it. She just rather stay home, take all these meds, like she doesn't work, she doesn't do anything, and she's just like happy with where she's at.
So would you, I know in hindsight, if you could go back and tell yourself anything, you would, of course, want to probably change it when you were 16. But everything happens in due timing, right? So you weren't capable or able to do it at that age. When you finally were, what would you say is the absolute key that made it work for you that time, that actually unlocked the door to sobriety?
What unlocked it for me that time, I always tell everyone, like, I wouldn't change a thing. They're always like, would you go
Right.
back and change it? I'm like, no, absolutely not, because I learned so much, where I feel
Mhm.
so much mentally further than people my age, because I've experienced a whole lifetime of stuff in such a short amount of time. Like, where some of these people have these downfalls later in life in their 40s and 50s, I got to experience it in my younger time. So I'm so grateful for all the knowledge and everything I have. So I wouldn't change it, but what I would say, I guess, like what really locked in the sobriety for me that time was just knowing I could do it all right this time. I just hurt so many people over that amount of time. I literally burned every single bridge with every single person in my life at that time, which most addicts do
Mhm.
because you're stealing from them. I
And
stole from
lying.
my sisters, my mom. I stole from everyone. I stole from my dad. Like, I stole from literally everyone to support my habit, and burned so many bridges to where I was so excited to be able to do it right this time. And I was so excited to be able to get out, get a job, prove to everyone I got this. Like, I know they thought I got it before, but I am actually doing it this time. Like, and I did. I literally got out and I did it all, and I got jobs and I got promotions, and now I'm actually like surpassing where my sisters are in life. My dad always
Mhm.
says that. He's like, sweetie, out of everyone, out of all your sisters, no one thought it was going to be you. Like, no one thought it was going to be you, and they didn't. Like, I was on drugs and ruining my life, and my other sister was going to Michigan State. My other sister was going to Oakland U, and they both had all these things going for them, and here I am, like, in and out of rehab.
Yeah.
But we got out and we just like put our pedal to the metal and made up for lost time and started, grinding through jobs and doing the best I could at my jobs, to where every job I held, I was getting promotions. Like, I was promoted when I first got out at my serving position to team leader, to where I was training new servers coming in, and then management, and then bartender. And then my other jobs, like I worked in an orthodontist, then they upgraded me to marketing and all these other things, to where like I put that drive behind me after making up for so much lost time. I was like, I can't wait to like do it right and prove to everyone this is going to be it. Like, we're going to do this.
So even though you were like in your darkest time of life that you could possibly imagine, like everything about you had to change. It wasn't who you wanted to be. It wasn't what you set out in life to do, obviously. But you were able to pull yourself out of it. Was it like a no turning back kind of thing? Like it doesn't matter what I've done. I know everybody is upset with me and I've burned every bridge and I've lied to everybody. They have no reason to believe me this time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to do it anyways.
Yeah. And it took like a lot. I was obviously like got out, and there was times where I felt those setbacks because there was family functions I wasn't invited to because, I had burned those bridges, and they're like, well, we can't just jump in and trust you. Like, we've done that so many times. And I was so hurt by that, like not going to weddings and the family and stuff like that. And so those, to a typical addict, you could use that as a point to relapse. Like, oh, everyone's just going to hate me forever. Or you could use that as a point to like, okay, I'm going to show them. And that was kind of like my outlook was, okay, they'll see, like, I got it this time. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I used the energy the opposite way. Instead of just throwing it all in and being like, that's it. Like, I forget it. Like, I'm useless. I used it to be like, we're going to do it 10 times better than anyone thought. I just redirected the energy, really.
And did it for you. You finally did it for you, not because somebody told you to or because you wanted to impress your friends or have your mom trust and believe you again. You finally did it for yourself.
Exactly.
And that's it worked.
Yep, exactly. I really had to hit that bottom, like, to where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that always crossed my mind too. Like, even if you wanted to relapse, could you really do that again? Could you really steal and hurt everyone again and subject yourself to, like, dancing naked on stage? Like, do you really want to go through all these things again that literally ruin you? Or do you want to do this where you can, like, sure, be angry, but go work out, like get in a gym, work off that anger. That was another thing I did. I hit the gym often. Like, I had a gym at my apartment complex, and if I was angry or anything like that, I would go to the gym instead. I had to find new coping mechanisms, like, and run on the treadmill and run that anger off till I was so tired that I couldn't have the energy to even think about anything else.
So you did it because it could be done.
Yes, exactly.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.